So, hey everyone, welcome. Glad you're here. You're here to help me defeat the tax zombies. And we'll get into what I mean by that. And it's a little bit playful, but it's also, these are serious subjects. These are things that cause real harm in real people's lives that I've seen too often. I've been practicing tax law for over 20 years. I've been teaching it to various groups for over 10 years. I've taught it to other auditors and attorneys and experts. And I've also, sorry about that. Make sure the phone off here. I've also taught it to beginners and novices. And so it's a subject I enjoy teaching. And these tax zombies are things that I see keep coming up over and over. And as you're gonna see in here, I call them tax zombies because these are like big myths and misconceptions about the tax laws that just won't die. No matter how many times I see them. Some of you may be tax preparers or accountants yourselves. Brian, I know you help folks with taxes, so you've probably seen some of these zombies. You may experience some of the same frustrations that I do when folks get, they get fooled by these things. But I'm glad you guys are here so we can learn about them and try to debunk and defeat these tax zombies. Before we get into it too far, though, I like to talk about how we feel about the subject. And I teach a lot of free classes on the law, on taxes, on critical thinking. And actually, one thing I teach in my critical thinking class is that as much as we like to think of ourselves as very logical decision makers and great critical thinkers, the reality is most of our decisions are made at an emotional level. And then we use logic and critical thinking to justify it after the fact. And so it's super important that we get in touch with how we feel about any subject we're going to learn about, because if we're not in touch with our feelings, especially if there's anxiety-based emotions, then we're not really going to be all that aware of why we're making the decisions we're making, and we may not be making the best decisions for ourselves. So when you guys think about tax laws, when you think about dealing with your taxes, how does it make you feel? What sort of emotions come up? What sort of feelings come up? If you want to unmute yourself and shout it out, you can do that. If you want to type it in the chat, that's totally cool also. But I kind of like to know where we're at. So how do taxes make you guys feel when you think about it? And it could be good or bad, positive or negative. I just kind of know where we're at. So, I mean, like for me, mostly, I practice in tax law, so I find it interesting. For me, it's an interesting puzzle. It can be kind of fun to deal out, or, to figure out. It's fun to help my clients with their problems. But when I think about filing my own taxes, it doesn't seem so fun at all, right? It seems like a pain. It seems tedious, and so I totally get it. Sarah, relief once it's done, for sure. Yeah, I get that, right? So actually, I just threw some of my business tax returns in the mail the other day, and it was a huge relief to get those off and done. Brian, constantly changing. Oh my goodness. That's such a great point, right? Because, even for those of us who study taxes, it's a constantly changing field. It's a constantly evolving field. The system we live in is one that has evolved to be the way it is for a variety of reasons. Some reasons make sense, some reasons don't. I have not yet met any economics expert or tax expert who would design our current net income tax system from the ground up deliberately. I don't know anyone who would design the system we have. It just has evolved that way for a lot of different reasons. But whatever we feel, it's okay. And, it's especially if you feel any sort of anxiety or tedium or around it, totally natural way to feel. And these tax zombies that we're going to talk about, they kind of take advantage of that, and they sap our power. And often, especially if you're a business owner, especially if you're service-based business, right? It turns out you have a lot of agency and power in the tax laws. And so let's take that power back for ourselves and not let these tax zombies sap it out. So as I've studied and taught taxes for a long time, I've come up with what to me are kind of these 4 steps to an empowered outlook on taxes and how we deal with taxes in our business. And it starts with abdication. And this is where some folks live, in that state of abdication, where it's avoidance. Maybe you don't want to think about it. You don't want to do anything about it. Often this is, either you just do the bare minimum, or you haven't filed returns in a while. You don't want to think about it. Some of you may be able to identify with that. I've certainly had clients who have come to me. I had actually one of my new clients who recently came to me. He hasn't filed returns in years. And so we're trying to get him caught up and deal with the consequences of that. And I totally get it. Again, it's a easy place to go, especially if the tax system seems very complicated. Kind of a step up from that is delegation, where, okay, you get that stuff needs to be done, but you don't really want to think about it yourself. So you just completely delegate it out, and you delegate it out without taking any responsibility. You just go to someone, you're like, please do it all for me. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to deal with it, right? Certainly better than nothing. At least you're kind of getting things delegated, and hopefully you're working with a good accountant or tax preparer. But also in this state of delegation, when you're not taking any responsibility, you're also kind of tying your preparer's hands. I mean, your accountant and your preparer, they're working with the information you give them. They're trying to do their best with the consequences of the business decisions that you are making. And so if you aren't making great business choices, there's only so much that your tax advisor can do to help you. I mean, I'm a tax attorney. This is what I do. And people come to me, and if they've already made choices that have certain consequences, I cannot now go back in time and undo those consequences. I can just try to make the best of it that I can. And then some folks, a step from there, they get in what I kind of call the state of responsible action. And this is where you're willing to think about it more. You're starting to learn something about it. Maybe you're learning to work with a great accountant or preparer or tax attorney or a combination. Some people have a whole team of those, right? And you're starting to make better business decisions. You're starting to understand how the taxes affect your life and your business, and you're trying to make better decisions so you have better outcomes when it comes to doing your taxes. And then finally, up at the top, I try to help folks get to this state of empowered cooperation. This is where you're learning from a true expert, working with a true expert, right? You have a great advisor or attorney, you have a great preparer who knows what they're doing, you know, or maybe you decide to file yourself. A lot of people decide to file themselves. That's okay too. And you're gaining real empowered knowledge. You're making great business decisions on a daily basis. You're understanding that every business decision you make all year long has a tax consequence of some form or another. And so you're taking that into account. I mean, you can bet a lot of these big businesses out there with teams of attorneys, they're thinking about taxes with every business decision they make. They're using it as a tool to grow and scale their business. And so you're starting to make better business decisions. You're taking taxes into account. You're learning to truly save money and do it the right way, ethically and legally, and reduce your risk. And you're working in cooperation. You're helping your tax preparer help you because by you making great decisions, you're putting your tax preparer in a better position to help you at the end of the year and make sure they're maximizing your options when it comes time to file. So that's where I try to get folks, is that state of empowered cooperation. And the tax zombies that we're going to talk about, they step in and they stop us from getting to that state of empowered cooperation. That's why it's so important to understand what these tax zombies are and to try and debunk them, because they stop us from getting where we need to be. I wanted to give you guys a real life example too that was really important in my life. So my parents, when I was growing up, they were business owners. They were kind of living the dream. They had a business, they had employees who they treated well, they were making good money, they had great clients, they loved their work. And they kind of lived, when it came to taxes, in the state kind of in between delegation and responsible action. They were taking some responsibility for themselves. They were trying to take some action themselves, and they were delegating, you know, a lot of the more complicated stuff to trusted advisors. And for the most part, they worked with some pretty good tax advisors and preparers. And then one day, they listened to the wrong people, right? My parents, they had some knowledge, but they had not gained a true understanding of how the tax system worked and how it affected them. They had not really reached that state of empowered cooperation and trying to figure out who they could trust, who they couldn't, learning how the tax laws work for themselves. And so they listened to the wrong people. These are, in the tax world, we call these people promoters, like in quotes. And we use the term promoters sometimes to mean folks who go around selling illegal tax scams or ways to save money on taxes that turn out to be abusive or illegal, that break the law. And they are not looking out for your best interest. They're just trying to line their own pocketbooks with fees. And they really knew how to take advantage of good people who lacked empowered knowledge. They knew how to take advantage of ignorance about key aspects of the tax system. They knew how to take advantage of your emotional state or any anxiety or feeling of tedium or not wanting to deal with it. I mean, these are slick folks, right? So, and as we'll see, my parents fell for one version of the tax zombies that we're going to talk about later, right? And it got them in a lot of trouble with the government. It seemed like they were going to save a lot of money in taxes, and up front they did. But in the end, they got in a lot of trouble. They got caught. It turned out to be an illegal tax scheme they got involved in. They had to pay back all that money with interest, and the government, boy, did the government come after them with penalties. Now, at the time, I was much younger. This was 25 years ago. I was still in law school. I had not graduated from law school yet. I was not a licensed practicing attorney. I was not yet an expert in taxes. I couldn't do a lot to help my parents with it, right? Um, so for me, it was kind of crazy to see them go through this and be in a position then where I couldn't help them. I mean, my parents were good people. They tried to do their best, and they got in this trouble with the government. And ultimately, they were kind of lucky in that they were one of the first people to come in and make a deal, right? So they came in and they said, "Look, we'll help you prosecute these folks at the top." And in return, the government gave my parents a break on the penalties. So they kind of got lucky. They got off kind of easy. Now, still, they had to pay back a lot of taxes with a lot of interest. It still set their business back years having done this. But even though they got off with a deal in the end, they still felt kind of a lot of shame at having been fooled by these folks. They felt betrayed by people they trusted. They felt a lot of regret. And for me, watching my parents go through that, it was kind of a helpless situation. I mean, this was, I really looked up to them. They were strong people who seemed to have it all together, and I had never seen them in this sort of state before. That sort of emotional turmoil and that sort of business turmoil all kind of wrapped up in one because they fell for one of these tax zombies. So for me, it was a very helpless feeling and a scary feeling, right? And that was when, I was still in law school. That was when I decided to specialize in taxes. And so I started taking all the tax classes I could. I went to work for the government as a tax attorney. And in fact, I specialized in trying to take down these tax zombies. That was basically my specialty as a government tax attorney, trying to debunk these tax zombies, trying to take down the people who are selling illegal tax scams and victimizing innocent business owners like my parents. So that moment really set me on a mission. And it is still why I teach classes like this. It's why I put on these free webinars. It's still a huge part of why I do what I do. A little bit about who I am. So a couple of familiar faces, which is great, and appreciate you guys being here. And for those of you who are new, again, my name's Ian Foster, and I got my law degree from UC Davis more than 20 years ago. A great heart-centered law school where they taught cooperation, they taught service, they taught, really trying to do good in the world. I am still a licensed attorney in the state of California. I have a private legal practice where I help people in business and tax matters. And my full-time specialty is educating and empowering heart-centered business owners. So if your clients are not just a credit card number to you, if your clients are people that you care about who are on a mission and you're trying to help them do the right thing and help them outgrow their business, that's kind of that heart-centered business community. And I had more than 18 years experience in government tax agencies. I worked for two of North America's largest tax agencies in their legal departments. And while I was there, I created training programs and traveled the country. I used to teach auditors and attorneys, train people on these cutting edge tax issues. And I now run these training programs in my private practice and my coaching business for business owners. And this is my chance to kind of take all that experience and pass along you might call them my inside secrets from all these years of government service and give you the perspective of, how a real life government tax attorney looks at this stuff kind of from the inside, seeing how the tax system really works. And this, again, I try to help you get to this point of empowered cooperation, right? And so this bridge to empowered cooperation, I realize there's some important things in my decades of teaching this. And one is that our emotional state can really sabotage our tax situation and our ability to earn income. And we don't think about that a lot. You might think of, well, if you don't know a lot about taxes, then it could sabotage your situation. And that's certainly true because you're making poor decisions that cost you money, increase your risk, all that stuff. But if you have any sort of anxiety about taxes, if you're trying to avoid it, if there's any sort of fear, and again, that's all natural stuff to feel if this is not your area of expertise, that ends up kind of sabotaging your tax situation. That it actually, you can attract the very things you fear. If you are worried about an audit, if you're scared of an audit, you can end up making decisions that make the audit more likely. If you're terrified of paying too much in taxes, that fear often leads you to make decisions that help you pay more taxes. So you end up attracting the very things you fear. And I've seen a lot of folks where their fear of taxes or their fear of getting audited sabotages their ability to earn income. They're terrified of making more money because they think making more money is going to attract attention from the tax authorities, and they're going to have to pay more taxes. They're going to get audited, right? And all that fear ends up sabotaging your attempts to do good in the world and to, attract a lot more income, more clients, and more abundance into your life. And then what I've seen about these tax zombies is that they target that emotional state, so your emotional state will sabotage how you deal with taxes. And these tax zombies come in and make it worse by targeting your emotional state and your lack of tax knowledge. So let's talk about these tax zombies so we can get rid of them. And now there are tons of tax zombies out there, right? So there are lots of different myths and misconceptions about the tax laws that are difficult to debunk or that keep living no matter how many times I try to debunk them. But I picked out 3 today that hopefully you'll find useful, and then I can try and get across some good value for you guys. So the first zombie, and again, I call these zombies because no matter how many times I try to kill them, they just keep popping up again, right? So you may have heard this. Reporting losses will cause the government to designate my business as a hobby. Number 2, forming my business in a no tax state means I don't have to pay taxes. So you may have heard like, hey, go form your business in Nevada or this offshore place and you magically don't have to pay taxes anymore. And the third one we're going to talk about are ways to convert your personal expenses into business expenses that give you more deductions and help you pay less in taxes. Have any of you guys heard these before? Have you heard any of these zombies? Maybe you've heard them in radio ads. Maybe you've seen people promoting them or selling them, or maybe you just heard these talked about in rumors, Facebook groups, but I don't know if you guys have heard of any of these before. These are 3 of the more common ones that I see. So let's talk about the first one. Zombie number 1. I reported too many losses, so now my business is a hobby and I can't deduct my expenses anymore. Well, my position is always, if you're entitled to deductions, take them. If you're entitled to losses, claim them. They're yours. The law lets you take them, so take them, okay? And as you're beginning to guess, there's no law that I'm aware of, now at least in the United States, right? So a lot of what I teach about net income tax systems is very applicable across net income tax systems because they're all tend to be pretty similar. At least in the US where I practice, there's no law that makes you a hobby if you claim too many losses. Right? There's a lot of rumors around there. Well, if I claim a business loss, they're going to call me a hobby. If I claim it too many years in a row, it's a hobby. I've had a lot of my clients go to tax preparers and the tax preparer tell them, no, you're not allowed to claim these losses, when they are absolutely allowed to. And my clients are afraid to speak up, right? Because they feel a little bit of fear. They feel intimidated. And so they kind of give away their power, especially giving away your power to this fear of the government that it's going to come in and reclassify your business as a hobby. But at least in the US, there's no law that says that. That isn't the state of the law, right? The point is, if you can prove a profit motive, and if you can document the deductions, right? If you could substantiate the expenses you're deducting, you don't have to be afraid to claim them. If you have a profit motive, it's not a hobby. If this is your primary activity, it's not a hobby. Now, there are hobbies under the tax law, but those are hobbies. Those are side things you do on the side where maybe extra income comes in, but you're not really trying to make a profit from it. If this is your business, if this is what you do, if it's how you serve people, if you have a profit motive, it's not a hobby. And as long as you can document what you're doing, don't be afraid to deduct the expenses that you're entitled to. And how do you document this stuff? How do you make sure you're protected from anything? Well, just do the things you should be doing anyway. Already as a business owner, building a business, trying to grow and scale, you should be incorporating your business. You should be forming a business entity, whether it's a corporation, limited liability company, whatever entity works where you live. You should be keeping good books and records anyway. So do the things you should be doing anyway as a business owner, and you don't have to worry about this. And indeed, as a business owner, as a small business owner, especially if you're in service businesses, the tax laws have picked you as a winner. I said up front, I don't know anybody who would design our current tax system from scratch. And one of the reasons is that it picks winners and losers. And from an economic standpoint, you don't want a system that picks winners and losers. And yet our system does. And it has picked you as a winner. So you might as well take advantage of it. As long as our tax system has picked you like a winner and given you all these opportunities, you might as well act like a winner and take advantage of it. And then zombie number 2 that I see all the time, forming my business in a no tax state means I don't have to pay taxes. And so, the point I want to make here is that trying to avoid paying taxes where you live and work, it never works, okay? Just forming your business somewhere else to try and avoid taxes doesn't work. And it sounds great. Find a place with no income tax. So the state of Nevada in the US is very common, right? Oh, no income tax in Nevada. I'm just going to form my business there. And since they don't have tax, I don't have to pay tax anymore. It's extremely common. Thousands of people do this every year, or they'll do it in Wyoming or Florida, or they'll find some Caribbean island, or, you name it, right? And it almost sounds too good to be true. And kind of a rule of thumb in looking out for tax zombies is if something sounds too good to be true, guess what? It probably is, right? So be careful of things that sound too good to be true. And to me, it always sounded too good to be true. Oh, I'm just going to form my business over there where they have no tax and now I don't have to pay tax anymore. Well, it doesn't work like that. The laws have never worked like that, and they're never going to work like that. You have to comply with the tax laws of the place where you live and work. So you can form your business in Nevada where there's no state income tax, but if you live and work in Alberta or New York or California, right, or wherever it might be, if you live and work in a place that does have tax, you got to file and pay where you live. Doesn't matter where you formed it. And in fact, forming your business somewhere else, all you're doing then is voluntarily subjecting yourself to the jurisdiction of a new place, which is totally unnecessary. You're going to have to pay annual fees there. If they start imposing taxes, you'll have to pay them. You have to pay someone there to monitor your business and be your agent for service. You're just adding extra expenses and extra filing that you don't need. So you always have to comply with the laws where you live and work. So don't try forming somewhere else to avoid that. And this myth really takes advantage of, our fear and anxiety. Oh my gosh, I don't want to catch the attention of the tax people. I don't want to have to pay tax. I don't understand how the laws work. And this zombie really takes advantage of that. It really targets that. So don't be afraid of attracting local attention where you live. They already know who you are, believe it or not. Okay. The government is pretty savvy and aware of this stuff. If you're operating a business where you live, the government's probably aware of it already. And so don't be afraid of attracting their attention. They already know who you are. You're already going to have to file and pay, and forming your business somewhere else is not going to go down great for you. So don't fall for this tax zombie. Let's take this one down. And then finally, the third zombie I wanted to talk about is this notion that you can convert personal expenses into business expenses. And awesome. That means more deductions, right? More deductible expenses, save taxes. Sounds great. And the point I want to make here is please, please, please don't try this. I have seen this one too often, and it doesn't work out well, okay? Your business can only deduct expenses that are ordinary and necessary for your business. And then it's for your specific business, because that ordinary and necessary standard applies a little bit differently to everyone. An ordinary and necessary expense for your business may not be ordinary and necessary for mine. And an ordinary and necessary expense for my business may not be for someone else I meet or work with, right? So you can only deduct the expenses that are ordinary and necessary for your business. And that does not include your personal expenses. And there are a lot of scams out there that sell you ways to deduct your personal expenses as though they were business expenses. Maybe your rent or the principal on your mortgage, your utilities, your personal vehicles. I've even seen a lot of scams that try to sell you ways to deduct your grocery expenses, right? And in fact, this is the tax zombie that my parents got in trouble with. One of the common ways this one works is they have you set up these family trusts. They call them family business trusts. And because you call them a business trust, it's a business. And, then you say, well, I'm in the business of buying groceries for my family. And you start deducting the cost of your groceries. That stuff does not work. Nobody ever gets away with it anymore. I still see people, unscrupulous people try to sell these kind of scams all the time. Learn from my parents' mistake. This is the zombie that they fell for. They ended up getting them in a lot of trouble and really set them back years in their business. So don't fall for this kind of stuff. Do you guys have any questions about any of this so far? Any of the zombies we've talked about? Maybe you guys have seen them. Do you have any questions about it?
Yes, I have a question, Ian. My name is Leslie. Yes.
Hi, Leslie. Yeah.
Yeah. I've attended some webinars which talk about deducting part of your, suppose you have an office at home.
Mm-hmm.
And they mention about deducting, you can deduct a part of whatever it is, say insurance or whatever it is that you pay. So you make that room as a percentage of of the whole house and you
Yeah.
deduct that certain percentage. Is that a zombie as well?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Thank you, Leslie. So that one is not a tax zombie. That's a special rule in the tax law. It's a special benefit that you're allowed to take advantage of. If it were not written into the tax law, it would be a zombie. But the government has added that special benefit to the tax law, and their thinking is, look, if you had to go rent an office space somewhere, you would clearly be allowed to deduct your office rent. In fact, my wife and I both still have physical offices where we see clients in person and we get to deduct our office rent, right? But if you don't go rent that office and you work out of the home and you have a true office at home, then the tax law steps in and gives you a special deduction to deduct a value of your home office. Now, just when you do it, make sure you comply with the rules, right? So you can deduct your home office, but you have to watch out for the rules. So for example, it has to be a true dedicated space at home. So right now I'm kind of set up in the place we're staying, like in the kitchen and living room area. I do not deduct any home office expense for this. It is not a dedicated space. I don't have a dedicated space where we stay right now, so I do not deduct any home office expense. But if you have a separate room and you really just use it for your business and then you comply with the rules, then you are allowed to do that. So that's a good question.
Okay, and sorry, just one more question. So that goes as well with if you have your personal car, but you also use it for business trips and you use one of those apps. For example, I use IQ Mile, and every time I make a business trip, I log it in as whatever. And my destinations are sort of name tagged and exactly where I'm going to from those trips. I normally just make them for business. Is that also a legal thing or is it a zombie?
Yeah, no, that one's okay. You're allowed to do that again, as long as you follow the rules, right? So as long as you stick to the mileage rate, as long as you really document what you're doing, and it sounds like you're doing it the right way. And as long as you can keep good records and you can show the government, no, I'm only deducting these miles and these trips were definitely business related, then you're okay on that. Where people get in trouble is where they try to make it seem as though their household is really a business, or like, me going back and forth to the grocery store for groceries is really a business when it's not a business. That's where people get in trouble. But if you're only deducting the miles for true business trips, you're going to be okay on that. I think. I don't want to, I can't make promises because everybody's situation is different.
Okay. No, thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Brian, yeah, you've seen the first two zombies often in Canada. Yeah, I can imagine in Canada as well. Those are very common. And again, there are lots more of these zombies, right? There are all kinds of ways that they try to get you to shift income around, to lower your tax rates, lower your tax liability in ways that are abusive and illegal, that ultimately get you in trouble. So the rule of thumb, if you're watching out trying to avoid tax zombies, is that if somebody comes to you with an idea that sounds too good to be true, it probably is. That's the number one rule of thumb for trying to avoid these tax zombies. So again, the three we talked about, and the way I see it, the more empowered outlook. I talked about how the zombies see it, but the more empowered outlook, when it comes to business deductions, take them, right? If these are true business expenses, then claim them. If the law says you're allowed to take them, and don't worry if it means you have a loss. In fact, you can have a loss for tax purposes while still earning a good income for a lot of reasons. I just finished up my business tax returns. One of our businesses made decent money last year, but still reports a loss for tax purposes. If reporting a loss meant you were a hobby, then Amazon would be a hobby and Starbucks would be a hobby. They report losses all the time, right? So if you're allowed to take these deductions, and take them. If you're allowed to claim the loss, then claim it. Exercise your power. You have a lot of agency and power in the tax laws as a business owner, so use it. Act like a winner. Exercise your power. And then remember also, you have to file and pay taxes where you live and work, right? If you live and work in a state or a province that imposes taxes, you have to file and pay there. Don't try to avoid it by setting up a business somewhere else. I have had so many clients who I've had to help them undo and unwind this very zombie because they've gotten involved in it. It never turns out well, and you literally always get caught. I've never seen somebody get away with this for very long. And then don't be a victim of one of these illegal schemes to convert personal expenses into business deductions. It doesn't end well, right? Your groceries are not a business deduction. You know, the personal residence where you cook and where you eat dinner and where you sleep in your bedroom. These are not business deductions, right? Make sure you follow the rules on this stuff. And so we've talked about some things to avoid, right? How to avoid these zombies, how to help me defeat these zombies once and for all. But what should we do? Okay, it's one thing to avoid the stuff that's going to get us in trouble, but what sort of positive action do we need to take? Well, again, I've kind of come up with this 4 stages from abdication all the way up to empowered cooperation. And keep in mind that this is where the tax zombies live, in those first 3 stages. If you live in a state of empowered cooperation, it's really hard for the zombies to track you down and get you. It's hard for them to take advantage of you. So let's step into that state of empowered cooperation. And this means learning how the tax laws work and learning why the laws work the way they do. So many of these tax zombies, they take advantage of not just your lack of knowledge of little pieces of the tax law. They take advantage of people's lack of knowledge of how the tax laws work overall. And you can see that in some of the stuff we talked about today. A lot of people don't realize that forming a business in another state doesn't get you out of paying taxes because they don't know how our system is structured and works at a high level. Zombies take advantage of that. So let's learn how the system works and why the way it works it does. Let's overcome any anxiety we have about taxes, right? Living in any sort of anxiety about taxes, it sabotages the decisions you make in your business. It ends up attracting the very things you fear. If you're living in any sort of anxiety, even mild anxiety about how you file your taxes, about risk of getting audited, your chances of getting audited and getting in trouble actually turn out to be much higher because we get what we focus on. If we are afraid of this stuff and if we make choices based in fear, we tend to get the very things we're afraid of. And this anxiety sabotages our ability to earn income as well. If you're concerned about attracting attention from the taxing authorities, then at a subconscious level, you're going to stop yourself from earning more income and doing more good and helping more people because you're afraid it will attract attention. It means understanding how these tax laws work at a subtle level and how they apply to your specific business so you can save money legally. Again, how the tax laws are there, they can be complicated, right? But they're not a huge mystery. They can be learned. You can understand this stuff and you have to learn how it applies to you individually because how they apply to you are not going to be how they apply to me or how they apply to someone else or your friend down the street. You change one little thing about your business and you change how the tax laws apply to you. So learn how they apply to you specifically and don't worry about how they apply to other people. This is going to help you reduce your tax liability and save money over the long run and do it legally and ethically in ways that don't put you at additional risk. It turns out you can use the tax laws to grow and scale your business, right? So you can grow, you can be more visible, you can be out there, you can help more people. And that's part of getting over our anxiety about being visible as well, right? And doing more good, helping more clients, earning more income. These big companies out there making a lot of money, they are using the tax laws as a tool to grow and scale. They are not waiting to crash into a brick wall. They understand that the tax laws can be the wind in your sails. If you understand how the tax laws work and how they benefit business owners like you, they become one more tool for growing your business and earning more income. They don't have to be just something you're worried about or something you're complying with. They're an actual business growth tool if you understand how they work. And then working hand in hand with the right experts, to learn how this stuff works, work with a good advisor, learn who to trust, learn who to work with, right? Find people with the right knowledge who have your best interest at heart, who are not just trying to line their own pocketbooks. And then put your tax preparer, if you still want to have someone prepare your taxes, that's great. It can be tedious and complicated. It's great to have a good accountant or tax preparer on your side helping you with that stuff, but you got to help them help you. You got to be making good decisions all year long that help put your tax preparer in a good position to help you come filing time. If you're making bad business decisions based on fear and anxiety and lack of knowledge, you're tying your tax preparer's hands. There's only so much they can do. This is why I have my program, Tax Law Made Easy, to help you reach this state. And we go through all these steps to get you there. And we start with kind of a basis, with a foundation, the basis of our tax system, to learn how it works and why it works the way it does. And a lot of people who teach taxes, they skip this important step. And to me, if you don't understand how the tax system works, then you're not going to understand the details of the tax system and how they apply to you. You have to have an overview of how the system works. We talk about appreciation of income, right? It kind of has a double meaning. Appreciation meaning gratitude, right? Appreciating the income and abundance, the good work you're doing in the world, and also income growth. How do the tax laws help you grow the income you're earning and your savings, right? And there are a lot of different unique rules in the tax laws, and how do they apply to you specifically? Because how they apply to you is not going to be how they're going to apply to other people. And then the maturation of your business. We want you to grow and mature, right? And the tax laws become a tool to do this. And I'll talk about what that means in a minute. And then, of course, creating plans, right? How do you plan for your taxes and how do you take action? Because if you're not going to take action, then all the knowledge in the world doesn't do you a lot of good. So laying this foundation, the basis of the tax system, right? You want a strong foundation for understanding how the system works. You want to learn the terminology. A lot of terms in taxes mean specific things, and you have to understand what they mean to make good decisions and to help put your tax preparer in a good position at the end of the year. Even the term tax basis, right? I use it here as the basis, meaning kind of the foundation of the system, but also basis in tax terms has a specific meaning about tracking your investment in assets. And we're going to learn what stuff like that means. Appreciating your income. We're going to talk about what income is for tax purposes, because the word income as we use it out in the world in conversations has a different meaning from the word income in our income tax system. Income in our tax system has a very specific meaning. And a lot of people who teach taxes, they either skip this step or they give it real short shrift. They want to go straight to the fun stuff, to the deductions and everything, right? And I get that. That is the fun stuff. But we are in an income tax system. It's a net income tax. So you're paying a tax at the end based on your income, which means the first line in every calculation is your income. And if you get that number wrong at the start, then your number at the end is wrong, always. So you have to understand how this calculation starts. And then we get to what do you deduct from it, right? So what do you have to report as income, but how can we start reducing that income? How many deductions can we take legally and ethically and safely to reduce that income? And what that does is it maximizes the income we're earning to live our dream life while minimizing the income on which we're paying taxes. That's the situation you want to be in. You want to be earning a good living, earning a good income in the colloquial sense, while minimizing the income in the tax sense. And there are a lot of ways to do that. A lot of unique applications in the tax laws, right? All these kind of different rules that you can take advantage of. And we're going to talk about things like the difference between capital and ordinary expenses and assets. The difference between a passive business activity and an active activity, right? The difference between pass-through and taxable, the qualified business income deduction, and some other things, right? There are a lot of these unique applications. How do they apply to you specifically? How can you take advantage of them to minimize the amount of taxes you're paying, to reduce your risk of getting audited, and to grow and scale your business? And we talked about maturing your business. And here's what I want to ask, like, are you self-employed or are you an entrepreneur? Are you a business owner? And, to me, I get that, these terms kind of overlap for sure. But to me, self-employed means you're still kind of like an employee. It's just that you're working for yourself. It's, you're still an employee. You're working for yourself instead of somebody else, but you're still kind of doing a lot of busy work. You're doing a lot of things for yourself. You're still spending a lot of time sitting in a chair, trading hours for dollars. So you can be self-employed, or you can make that transition to being a true entrepreneur, to being a real business owner, right? And the tax laws help you do this. In fact, the tax laws are a critical element in helping you go from being just self-employed to being a real owner of a true business, a business that's scalable and visible and safe. The tax laws are one of the key tools, one of the most important tools. So we're going to learn how to take advantage of them on your journey from self-employment to being a real entrepreneur. And then how do you plan and take action? Put this empowered knowledge to use. So we're going to learn about tax planning, tax filing, the audit process. Remember, I was a government tax attorney for 18 years. I was an auditor and investigator. I used to go after businesses who were suspected of breaking the tax laws, right? So we're going to do some role playing. You're going to see that the audit system doesn't have to be nearly as scary as you might think it is. It doesn't have to worry you as much as you might think. I don't think I'm a scary person. If I'm coming across as scary here, I'm probably not doing a great job today, but I'm a fairly typical example of a government tax auditor. I was one for many years, right? And I was just someone trying to do a good job, acting in service, right? I didn't join the government as a tax attorney for government legal departments for the money. Most government employees are not there for the money, right? They're there because they have a heart for service. We see our clients as the citizens of the country and the state we live in. I saw my job as tracking down the folks who were stealing tax money from the rest of us, right? Who were avoiding taxes illegally. They were taking money out of the pockets of teachers and firefighters and road workers and police officers, right? They were taking money out of the tax system, and then normal folks like us ended up having to pay the price for it. So for me, it was a life of service. So we're going to remove that fear and anxiety, and we're going to learn how you can work with your tax preparer if you have one, again, so you can help them help you. You want to help your tax preparer put you in a better situation. So how do we get there? Well, there's online learning modules. There's 19 videos, and they're understandable, bite-sized chunked, right? They're not like hour, 2-hour long videos. I try to keep each video to short, bite-sized, understandable pieces, so you can learn step-by-step how the tax system works for you. There's worksheets, quizzes, and checklists to help you absorb the information, implement what you're learning, apply it in your own unique situation. And then the weekly Q&A calls, right? So we're gonna have 6 live Q&A calls. It's a 6-week program on Zoom. And this is where we get together, we form a community, and I try to make it a very safe, caring community. I tend to attract really amazing people, wonderful people, like-minded folks who are heart-centered, who wanna do the right thing. And in this community, we work through our questions together, right? And I tend to take on, I stay on these calls as long as it takes to answer your questions. The way I see it, you're investing energy, you're investing time in this, you're investing money in this. I want to make sure all your questions is answered. And so I try to stay on as long as I can to answer everybody's questions. And you get to see how this is done in community, how we work these problems through as community. And seeing how the tax laws apply a little bit different to each one on the call helps you understand the system better. And then you get the Q&A call recordings, right? Because I get not everyone can make every call. That's totally fine. You know, I can't schedule the time that works for everyone every week. And so we do record the calls, and you still get the value of learning from everyone's questions on the calls where you can't make it. So when you enroll, you'll get instant access. So all of the online learning modules, the slides, the worksheets, the quizzes, all of that stuff is pre-uploaded. You get instant access to all of it. Okay. Some people, they like to get on, they like to get through it fast. Other people like to go through it slowly and work through it week by week. I leave that up to you. It's not my job to tell you how fast to go through the content. So you get instant access. You can decide that for yourself. You get keep access for the lifetime of the program, right? So basically, as long as I'm paying my bills to the software platforms and have these programs up, you will keep lifetime access. And I certainly plan to keep paying my bills, okay? So you get lifetime access to the program, to all of that content, and the recorded Q&A calls. You'll start to get the call schedule and links. So watch for the schedule. The calls, actually, we're beginning in about a week. So about a week from tomorrow, you know, we're going to start getting started with these calls. So start to watch for the call schedule and links. And you get to be part of a trusted community. And part of how I form a trusted, caring community of tight-knit people is that I limit access of the Q&A call recordings. These Q&A call recordings, they're not going to be shown to anyone from last year's program. They're not shown to anyone from next year's program. I am not going to package these calls and sell them as a new evergreen program to make more money off of your problems. That's not what I do. The recordings are limited to only the people who join this run of the program. And I do that so that you can open up, so that you can trust the people, so that you know when you open up about your own business and tax problems on the call, you know that only the people in this one run of the program will get access to the recordings. You don't have to worry about anybody outside seeing that. That's how we form trust. It's how we get people to open up and be honest, and so we can work through these things together. Just what some of my clients have said about tax law made easy. So Terry in California, this course was accessible and one of the more beneficial things I've done for my business. Terry was a tax novice. She will be the first to admit that she knew nothing about taxes when she started and found it very accessible. On the other hand, Connie came in. Connie is a tax expert. She's a CPA and a financial advisor. She's done a lot of work in taxes, and she still found the program worth it. Connie said, I know a lot already, but I learned so much, and Ian makes it easy no matter what level of knowledge one has. I really try to make it accessible so that whether you know nothing about taxes, whether you know a lot already, there will be something in there for you. You'll get value out of the program no matter what level you're at. And then Elaine in North Carolina, she sent me this right after she joined the program and started going through the modules. She said, I just started studying Tax Law Made Easy, and Ian's a fantastic teacher. I'm already feeling myself become free of the fear of making more money because I didn't know how to handle taxes or how to find someone trustworthy to help. I started to relax about not knowing taxes, which is holding me back. If you haven't taken this course, I highly recommend it. And what Elaine's getting at is what I was talking about, how our emotional state, we don't realize how much our emotional state affects all this. If you feel any sort of anxiety, trepidation, tedium, fear about taxes, not want to deal with it, avoidance, whatever it might be, that emotional state is affecting you in ways you don't realize. As far as the value of the program like this, well, I mean, it depends on how you want to look at it. So you get access to me. I was a real life government tax attorney for 18 years. If I were to just charge you my hourly rate for this content and the Q&A time, I added up the time, you'd pay me $12,000 just at my hourly rate. Avoiding unnecessary audits. Now, I can't promise you're going to avoid audits, right? But we are going to talk about how to reduce our risk, how to save money legally. You know, sooner or later, most people get audited at some point just through bad luck, but you don't want to get audited any more than you need to. So you don't want to be audited unnecessarily. You don't want to have those extra audits. And think of what it would cost to hire someone like me to defend you. If it's a relatively simple audit, again, at my hourly rate, it's going to cost $5,000 for me to defend you in that audit. So you can save that. Avoiding the penalties. If you follow one of these tax zombies to try and avoid taxes, the penalties and interest alone can cost 10,000 plus easily. If you get caught up in one of these tax zombies, the government really frowns upon it, which is why I'm trying so hard to talk about these tax zombies and defeat them, because people get in a lot of trouble for this, right? There's all these penalties that we would call them stackable penalties, meaning the government can stack them one on top of the other, right? So there's a penalty that doubles your interest. There's a penalty that hits you with 25% for accuracy problems. There's something called an economic substance penalty that adds another 40%. You can see how these penalties start to stack and add up. So avoiding that. And to me, the confidence and peace of mind, building a visible, profitable business, doing it the right way, feeling good about this, to me, that's priceless. During this launch, you can join for as little as $197 today, plus 5 more payments of $197. This is actually a new 6-pay plan. I did get some requests from people for having a 6-month payment plan, so I went ahead and created a 6-month payment plan. Several folks are starting to take advantage of that already. So you can join for as little as $197 today, and then 5 more payments of $197. There's also a full pay option, which will save you the most, where you can join for one low payment of $997. There's a 3-pay plan, but the point is I have these different payment plans so you can choose what works for you. And then I've created a new launch bonus. This is something I've been wanting to do for a while, is do a workshop called Avoid the Tax Danger Zone. It's going to be a half-day workshop, about 4 or 5 hours of content. I normally charge $497 for my half-day workshops. And because I'm excited to offer this one, this is a new workshop that I've been wanting to do for a while. So I'm going to throw this in as a launch bonus where you can get this free half-day workshop. And we're going to talk about what these tax danger zones are. What are the audit red flags that you want to avoid or reduce your audit risk? What are some more of these tax zombies you can avoid? What are the warning signs if somebody's trying to get you involved in an illegal tax scheme or get you in trouble? All of these tax danger zones, we're going to talk about how you can stay out of this at this workshop. Again, very excited to do this. This was my whole specialty when I worked for the government, basically, was these tax danger zones. And so I'm excited to do a workshop, and I'm excited to throw this in as a free bonus. There are a couple of fast action bonuses for those of you who joined today. I am super grateful for your time. I know you could have been doing a lot of other things for the last hour. You could have been working on your business. You could have been relaxing, whatever it might be. So I know you could have been doing other things with your time. I appreciate you being here. I mean it. I'm grateful. Thank you. And so I want to, out of gratitude, I want to give you guys some fast action bonuses. If you're able to join the next hour, you'll get a free half-hour tax consult with me. And you can use this anytime in the next 6 months. You can use it next week to get a good overview of your tax situation and how to go through the course. You can use it later when it comes filing time. Again, you have 6 months to use this. Some people call it their oh shit call. They wake up in the middle of the night and go, oh shit, I forgot about this. I better get on the phone with Ian. Or they get a letter from the government. Oh shit, what do I do? Get on the phone with Ian, right? So, but you can decide how to use it in the next 6 months. And the other bonus is during the 6-week run of the program, you'll get email access to me to answer your tax questions. Now, you might be thinking, well, I can email you and ask tax questions anytime. And that's true, you can, but I'm not going to answer them. If I answered every legal question I got by email, that's all I would ever do, right? You can imagine the number of questions about the law on taxes I get by email constantly. So as a rule, I don't just go around answering them, right? I would do nothing else if that's all I did. But I'm going to make an exception during the 6-week run of the program. If you have questions about your taxes, about the content, you can get that email access to me, which is not something I normally give out, right? So those two things, that's worth at least another $2,100 in value. Again, that's just at my hourly rate. I think the true value to you is more, but I'm just trying to, for those of you that want a number put to it. If you're interested, you can go to taxlawmadeeasy.com and check it out. I can throw it in the chat. If you want to click on it. So taxlawmadeeasy.com if you want to check it out. And just to sum it up, you'll get instant access to the 19 online videos and worksheets. You'll get the 6 weeks of live Q&A calls. And I'm going to try and throw in bonus calls. If I get enough people, especially enough people in different time zones, I'm going to try and throw in some bonus calls because I want everyone to get a chance to get on the Zoom and get their questions answered. You'll get the bonus half-day tax danger zone workshop, which is something I'm super excited to do, my new workshop. And so I'm excited to throw this in as a bonus. And then if you do in the next hour, you'll get the private tax consult with me. And I'm not sure where else you're going to get a free half-hour tax consult with a real-life government tax attorney and the email access during the program run. So again, that's at least $14,597 in value. That's just at my hourly rate. You can get instant access to the program today for as little as $197 if you do the 6-day pay plan, or if you want to save more, you can do the full pay. Glad to offer the options so you guys can do whatever works for you. So thank you guys. I actually have a little bit of time. I'm fine sticking around and answering any questions. It looks like Rebecca, you had something in the chat. I've heard rumors that the government has intentionally made taxes so complicated no one can do it right, so they can go after anyone. That is a form of a tax zombie, believe it or not. So as an actual government tax attorney, we did not enjoy the fact that our taxes were so complicated. We would never have designed it that way. And in fact, a lot of people in my office, part of my job was writing new tax laws. And we were constantly trying to write laws to make things easier for people. The complicated system did not make our life better. It did not help the government raise more revenue. In fact, a complicated system makes it more difficult for the government to raise revenue because it contains so many little loopholes and distinctions and opportunities. Our complicated system creates more opportunities for people to avoid taxes, both legally and illegally. So it actually does not help the government raise more revenue. The government would maximize revenue with a much simpler system. So my fellow tax attorneys in government, we were constantly trying to simplify things in a lot of different ways. And sometimes we were successful, sometimes not. I will say well, I don't want to call out any specific companies, but a lot of our legislation we wrote to simplify the system was defeated by specific companies who would go to the politicians. We would have a lot of politicians who were in favor of it and going to vote for it. And then they would get campaign contributions from certain companies who wanted to keep these complexities in place because they benefited from them. A lot of the big corporations around, they are the ones who are really benefiting from the complicated tax system. If our tax system were simple and easy, they would have to pay a lot more in tax. So that's sort of the long and short of it. Our system evolved this way over a long time for a lot of reasons, but a big reason it's still so complicated is because there's a lot of companies that benefit from it, and it actually helps them pay less tax. But I appreciate the question, Rebecca. It's a very common misconception. And I see why people think, oh, the government likes it complicated. But as someone who was in government, I can tell you that's absolutely not the case. We did not enjoy the system being so complicated. It made our lives much more difficult. Any other questions? I'm happy to answer more questions. If you have about the tax zombies or any sort of tax myth or misconception, questions about the program, Tax Law Made Easy, what can I do for you guys? Well, again, I appreciate you guys being here. Very grateful for your time. Would love to see you in the program. Would love to find out ways to, and serve you and help you. I think a couple of you in here actually maybe already signed up for the program, taking advantage of it. So I'm looking forward to serving you guys again. Thanks again so much, everyone. Really appreciate your time. I hope you guys have a great day.